Hello again. This is the SCP podcast, and I am your host, Dr. J. And today I have a really exciting guest with me. It is Dr. Cedric Williams. How are you, Cedric?
I'm good. It's great to see you, Dr. J. Looking forward to our conversation and just the opportunity to be able to talk to SCP members and beyond.
Yes, I'm excited that you're here. You and I go a little bit of ways back, working on different projects within the division. So this conversation is, I know you've told me your story, but I'm excited that other people will also hear your story and how you broke into consulting. So we'll just start off with, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Dr. Cedric Williams. Kind of have a variety of backgrounds and work that I do currently. My main point of work is, I work for Legacy Consulting and Research Group, which is a consulting psychology practice I started in 2017 at the tail end of my graduate school experience. I've kind of had multiple careers along the way. So I've been in the Army for about 19 and a half years at this point. So March, I hit my 20-year mark, which is a big deal. So I'm pretty excited about that. But other than Legacy, I also am in the academic space. So I have 2 assistant professor positions, one at Fuller Graduate School of Psychology. And then also I teach at West Point in the summer. So it's the United States Military Academy. I teach a course on psychology and leadership, which is really exciting, and get to do some research there too. That's a little bit about the work that I do currently, in psychology.
Okay, well, very nice. First of all, I just have to stop here. You're at 19 years. You're about to hit 20. So are you thinking about continuing on? Are you gonna, is it retirement time, or what are you thinking about?
Oh, I'll still keep going. I still feel like I'm still having a good time. I mean, I love being in the military. So I love the service and the opportunity to be able to be around. You meet just outstanding people, and the people are wonderful. In the mission of what we're doing. So, I mean, I think that I'll stay for a long time. So we'll see. As long as I'm continuing to have fun and, it's a good time. So I think I'll stay for a while.
Which sounds, to hear the military and fun, you have to be in the military to even understand how those 2 words can fit in a sentence together. So, you gonna go ahead?
I was just gonna say, right. Well, at this point, my job now is, to teach at the United States Military Academy, and it's just been, I've been at this billet for less than a year, and it's just amazing. So as long as as they'll continue to have me, I would love to be there. So it's a great experience. So for me, I think that's exactly what I would like to be.
Absolutely love it. So I know you were talking about Legacy, that being your business, and as well as just the other phenomenal things about your background. But I really want to land on the Legacy piece. So I would assume that this is your consulting practice, and so I'm just curious to know, how did you break into consulting, start your own business, and somehow mesh psychology and all of those things? So let's just first start with, just how did you break into consulting and start your practice?
So when I was in grad school, like I said, I was a non-traditional student. I had already been in the Army for a long time. I think, probably 10 or 12 years at that point. When I went to grad school. And so I had a lot of leadership development, training or leadership training. When I was in grad school, I took a class from one of my professors who was like a vice president for Dow Chemical for like 30 years. And then they became a psychologist. He's now the chief operating officer of Fuller. And, anyways, he taught a course on marketing professional services. And, we talked a lot about how most people will not come for clinical sessions, most of the population doesn't come in for psychotherapy. And so I took some of the content from that class and just thought about what is going to make the largest impact? It might be going and having a one-on-one conversation or therapeutic experience with a person in a room. But where else do other people go? Well, they go to work. And so thinking about how do you take psychological principles to the workplace and to the work environment was something that was just really attractive to me. And so that's what I really tried to do. I remember initially when I was in grad school, I started just like putting together like workshop presentations, anything on like leadership development or psychology, resilience. And then I would just call my army buddies, people I've met throughout the last decade and say, hey, like, I put together this like presentation. I would love to be able to, to use your police department or use your, military unit. If I could just come and just share. And that's how it was. It was really brick by brick, like putting these things together, putting presentations together, starting to learn more about assessment. So thinking about team assessment, organizational assessment, and then always, of course, having like this lens of diversity, equity, inclusion. I think that as a Black male psychologist, that was something that was always important to me, and thinking about that and how that had shaped my own narrative, my own life, whether it be within the military, whether it be as a psychology student at the time, or now as an early career, mid-career professional. Those were the things that were really important to me. So breaking into consulting was pretty organic. It was just like kind of like a step-by-step of what is consulting psychology, learning, reading about it. I got the consulting psychology fundamentals. So like I read early on the book by Sears and Rudisill on consultation for mental health professionals. And then also Rodney Lohman. I think that I can't remember if it came out in 2015 or 2016, but I just remember reading those books, and those were required reading for my course. And I remember just being like, my whole world was opened up of thinking about, I would much rather do this because this work was really energizing, like thinking about executive coaching, thinking about executive assessment, leadership development, like those things are really exciting to me. And so that's really how I got started in the world of consulting psychology. And then eventually I started meeting people in the Society of Consulting Psychology and Division 13, which opened up, a tremendous amount of new doors and avenues as well.
So it's so much in what you just said, and I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about it today, but one of the things that you mentioned was you had a class on marketing professional services. It was that class, and so I'm just curious, what were some of the things you pulled from that class that sort of sparked this, you building the presentations, you reaching out to different people. Why was the marketing piece so important for you with getting out there as well, or getting into the field of consulting psychology?
Yeah, so that class was important because the end assignment in that class was building a business plan. And so I took it really serious. Ted and I are friends now, and so he always kind of laughs at me, like, because I took it really serious. I was like, okay, I want to build this business plan. This is going to be my forever business plan. And, like 40 pages later, like here I am building the building blocks of legacy, right? And thinking about how it's going to be used in year 1, year 5, year 7, year 10, doing the mathematics, making the formulas for, as far as revenue, profits, all of these types of things. I was starting to really take it seriously. And in the process of doing that, that's really where it was like the catapult of, I really enjoy this work, and I really enjoy about thinking not just myself as like a clinician, as a psychotherapist, but how can I take these psychological principles and bring them to people who I felt like were like me, who my family, I come from like a family of like 6 boys, they, I never went to therapy, but they always work, you know what I mean? Like, those are the sets. I'm like, okay, like how can I make the greatest impact on, for the people that I think are like me, who are like, I consider myself like a common person, right? Like, and so the boots on the ground type of a thing in consulting psychology is what I really love. Like the general applied psychologist, it's like, something that I think is just very near and dear to me.
And I think, everything that you're saying, because, my passion truly is marketing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think, when we come into, I would say many clinicians or many, counseling folk or, many of you who come from, and including myself, even IO psychology, even though there's some overlap, but sometimes we think we have to sacrifice, that background in order to step into this field. But what I hear you saying, and what I think many would agree with, is no, this actually complements what you're trying to do as a consulting psychologist. You're just taking those different principles of being a clinician, being a counseling psych, mental health counselor, whatever it is, and then bringing it to, as you said, those who are like me, just everyday, people who are, number one, in the workplace. And I'm not sure the statistic, but I mean, I think we will all agree that we spend the majority of our time working. So if that's true, then how do we apply some of those same principles from psychology into the workplace to help people, work at their most optimal level, help organizations run at their most optimal level, help teams build, cohesion and all these different things, and then using the data and assessments to then do that. So thank you for definitely for sharing that piece. And so as we get ready to kind of, close out, and again, we're going to have you back on here because I really want to dive even more into this. You took a marketing course, which many, I think psychologists, we don't take those types of courses, right? Like we're very heavy on, the theories and the methods and the frameworks and the schools of thoughts. But we're not focused necessarily on the business side, which if we're going to step out there on our own, if we're going to learn how to bring the different aspects of psychology into the business place, we have to know how to market these things. So two things. The first thing is, I really love how you said, you built these trainings and then you use your network to say, hey, I know that, this may be of use to you. Would you mind if I come in? Tell us a little bit how that process was, building something that maybe you hadn't built before, but you just taking the chance and saying, I'm going to build this, DNI training. I'm going to build this, resiliency training, and then taking it to people who are really taking a chance on you because they don't know if it's going to work or not. Tell us a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, so I would say that there was really just like an overflow of my life, right? So thinking about multicultural competence, I was already doing a lot of reading, right? I was already doing a lot of research and a lot of studying. So putting together like a presentation off of what I had studied or what I had learned or experiences that I've had all throughout the lifespan, I didn't feel that challenging because it just felt like very organic. Like this is a part of my life and I'm just telling the story of my life and the experience that I think that I have that intersects with psychology, with work, with occupational thriving. Those were the types of things that I really wanted to put together. And then it was just a matter of just reaching out to people and just putting yourself out there. I mean, I heard a lot of no's, but I heard a lot of yeses too. A lot of people said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love for you to come. But it was built about building relationships. And so I think that the topic of multicultural competence in particular does not have to be adversarial. And so when I come and I talk about multicultural competence, whether it be to a police department, whether it be a private equity firm, whether it be a nonprofit, I try to, to come in with the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, look, like, where are we at and where are we wanting to go? And so I think that it's a matter of risk, of just saying, hey, look, like, this is putting yourself out there, calling people, and then going forward. And then, of course, there was mistakes that were made along the way, but growth that was also made along the way. And so I think that it's important, if you're breaking into consulting, to try new things and to stretch yourself, and then also to figure out something that you really enjoy. And then that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Love it. And that's good advice, I think, for all of us at whatever level we're at. So we're down to our minute, and you kind of already touched on this, like what's, something that what a piece of advice you give those who are thinking about breaking into consulting, whether they're coming to the world, the counseling world, or just new to the field altogether. But something you said about the building relationship piece, talking more about that and just the importance of that. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this out loud, that piece and then this other piece about, I think a lot of us feel we have to know it all in order to
Mhm.
step out there. Like we have to, I can't talk about resiliency if I haven't, practiced it in like, a Fortune 500 company. But what I hear you saying is you're taking your own personal learnings, your own, experience with this, taking the learnings that you have within your courses, and you're saying, you know what, I'm gonna make something of this. I'm going to apply my perspective on it, and then use my relationships and my network to see where we can go with this. And I'm sure there were learnings on the way even with that. As you said, you got a ton of no's, but you also got some yeses. So what's a piece of advice even with that's part where someone who may feel, you know what, I feel a little incompetent, I don't feel like I have the authority to speak on this because I don't have 12 years, 15, 20 years of experience going into organizations and doing this. What would you say to a person who might have that sort of hurdle to get in, to start today?
I would say that one thing is that I think that there's a big difference between experience and expertise. I can't have experience for 15 years because I'm not that old, in the field, and I can't apologize for that. But I do have expertise, right? That's something to think about. As a psychology student, as a psychologist, like you do have expertise. You have something that you're bringing, right? The second part is that you rely heavily on other people who do have experience and expertise. So like I have no problem asking people who are in SCP, who are senior, like, hey, teach me this, or hey, this is what I'm thinking about. I'll call these people. I just was on a call yesterday with two senior consulting psychologists, from SCP, right? Just talking and asking questions and thinking about what they're doing. So I have no problem doing that. I don't know. I mean, I could name names of people in SCP who on a regular basis that I'm calling and asking and questioning. But I think that you have to put yourself out there if you're wanting to learn and grow. Like, and you don't necessarily have the skills, or maybe you have the book knowledge, but you need to actually understand how this is practically in place. Call the people, or know who you need to call. Know where to get the resources, and then just ask. I think that that's really important and something that I really value and lean into as much as I can.
And that is the punchline, everyone. So, to all of you who are listening today, this I think is the beauty of number one, the Society of Consulting Psychology, Division 13 of APA, is that you have, when you feel that you may be at your limit on where you can take your business or where you can take your practice, you have a group of people who are waiting for you to come ask those questions, as Cedric is talking about. So, Cedric, thank you so much for coming on today. We will definitely have you back on to talk about this marketing piece because I'm just excited about that.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And to everyone else who is listening, we'll be putting some of the resources that Cedric shared. I'll put those attached to this so you can have even further learnings. And we'll also, if you don't mind, Cedric, we'll include your information. And if anyone wants to reach out, maybe and ask more questions, they can do that. So thank you. And we are out.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Dr. J.